Always something.
Okay. So, Being Bebe. So one thing, when it comes to the conversation of LGBT topics in America, it's still very divisive. Was there any point of this film that you thought maybe this could have a lot of negative, blowback for yourself? Maybe something with family or just friends or people not understanding why would you even focus on something like this that long?
Yeah, I think especially at the beginning, I think drag was a lot more taboo than it is now. Being in a pre-Drag Race world, it was not as mainstream as it is today. Drag was pretty much only found in gay clubs, at night, or drag balls, or sort of like had like an underground vibe to it. And so I think in the early days, it wasn't as obvious to people why I was so intrigued by not just drag, but BeBe in particular. And I think it took me a while to sort of be able to cut my sample into something that expressed what is so special and unique about BeBe, that transcends maybe any stereotypes that people have or expectations that they have about what it is to be a drag performer, what it is to be an African immigrant in the US, what it is to, I don't know, it's early. I'm thinking, I'm like losing track of all of the unique things that Marshall is. But I think there was some taboo at the beginning, and it gradually wore off. In my experience, I mean, maybe it's the circles I run in, but I've definitely felt a lot more enthusiasm and openness to the subject from people of all stripes in probably the past 5 to 8 years.
What is special about BeBe?
Oh my God, there's so many things. But I think what's so nice about this movie is people come in with their assumptions about what BeBe is, and it cracks them open a bit. I think BeBe is a very grand diva. And she presents herself with all of the confidence and conviction that she does innately hold. But she's a homebody. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She doesn't party. She's very private about her love life. She was kind of a nerd growing up, like a really good student. Her family really values education and prioritizes that. And it was a big deviation for her to get off that path that her family so valued. Coming to the U.S., Marshall and all of his siblings were supposed to go to school, supposed to, get their education. And he decided it wasn't for him and made his own education in the drag world and committed to it 300%. And he wanted to be the best at it. And he didn't know what that would lead to, but he knew that he had to try and to give it 100% of professionalism and work ethic and creativity, and it paid off.
You said you started in 2006. So in 2006, I'm not sure where we were in the not conforming to being gender specific. Yeah. At what point in this development did you see or did BeBe express or Marshall express that, I'm not doing that anymore? Because I would imagine at that time he was still navigating.
The remarkable thing is how consistent Marshall has been from our initial interviews till today with refusing to adhere to labels in terms of gender and sexuality. So I find that pretty remarkable, honestly. Yeah. And it just shows to me, I also think like the more I've learned about sort of the history of homosexuality in Africa and how colonization of Africa, and particularly Cameroon, impacted just freaking everything. And that's like a whole nother movie that absolutely needs to be made that we didn't make. It's complicated. And that sort of like refusal to adhere to labels, I think is a pretty innately African thing, honestly. It's true.
Is there any, and I imagine this may be explored in the documentary, any thoughts of him going back, considering, the laws and things like that, or is it just a distant memory?
I don't want to say too much because we do talk about it in the film. Yeah.
Okay, we won't talk about it.
Not to be difficult.
Is this your first documentary?
It's my first feature.
First feature.
Yeah, I made some shorts.
Is there, again, this many years of developing a project, kind of the same question you heard me ask before. Is there a story that you really wish you could have put in there, but it just didn't fit?
So many things. Like, it's just impossible to condense 15 years of a person's life and create a 100% full portrait of a person. But I'm really happy with what we ended up narrowing in on. I'm trying to think of, I have one producer who was just like, you've got too many stories going on. And she was really pushing me to just like let go of the few and focus on fewer. And that's good advice. Like a 90-minute movie can only do a few things. But it's so funny now that it's done, I feel like we did kind of like touch on all the things I really wanted to touch on pretty much that BeBe was willing to touch on. I mean, there were so many things we didn't, that we left on the cutting room floor because they weren't relevant in terms of some of the projects that BeBe was pursuing. Like, she also really wanted to get back on TV after the first season of Drag Race and was developing a lot of projects in that realm that, ultimately didn't get picked up. But, they're sort of interesting, but ultimately not as interesting as her music career that we follow and her live performance career. I don't know. Beyond that, she, the one thing I kick myself is she was working in a bridal shop as a dress consultant when we first started filming in 2006, and I didn't get any of that. And that would have been great because she quit her job, or things like when she went to the pageant, it didn't work out for her to stay there. And so I missed my opportunity for that. And that's a scene that I think would have been really cool.
Were there moments or for you particularly that the development was getting hard on you, where it was a struggle and you kind of was wavering on if you wanted to continue or not?
I mean, every day. Documentary is so hard. It's so hard to raise money. It's, if you watch the credits of the film, it was taken 3 villages to make this movie. BeBe's village, my village, the universe's village. So many people have helped make this happen. And I think if there weren't those people who were believing in it as I did and continuing to show up, I would have had more doubt. But there were a lot of off-ramps with this. And I remember at one point, someone who I really admire, a filmmaker, was like, well, not all documentaries are made to be finished. And I think he was trying to be nice, but I was just like, it made me mad. And I knew in my gut that maybe it's an ego thing, but I don't think it was. I have given up on other projects in the past, but this one I just knew needed to be seen through.
With the way that, again, things have developed in America with the LGBT stuff, do you feel like you stayed with it and came out at the right time?
I do think there's something to, BeBe says this a lot, that, he really believes in divine timing and that this is the right time for this film. And I have to agree. I think, I would have loved to be done with it 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. It's been a really rough road, but it's just so much better for having spent this much time. It's a more hopeful film. It's a more humorous film. It's more well-rounded film, just by virtue of the fact that both Marshall and I have grown up a bit and have a little bit more, room to reflect, and that we were able to build so much trust, I think, with his family also adds a really nice layer that it just wouldn't have been the same movie had we finished it earlier.
How did you know you was done?
That felt really clear. It was crazy. It was like a physical feeling. We had made a big push to finish a year prior, before the pandemic. We were starting to submit to festivals with it cut. And I still felt like a tightness in my chest as we were sending it out. I was like I felt it was good, but it wasn't good, And
right.
And then the pandemic hit, and we were like, you know what? This is our moment to step back and see, is there a way to make this even better? And I think we really, strangely, fortunately, benefited from that. And we shot a new interview in 2020 in Minneapolis, BeBe in my hometown here in the US, that just ties the whole thing together really beautifully. And it just, yeah. I feel like when we watched the new cut with that new interview spine in January of, I guess this year, I just like that tension in my chest just released. It was okay, we're not done yet, but this is the movie. Like we can keep polishing this version.
Why did you choose documentary as a direction?
So when I went to college, I went there. I'd been like a child actor growing up in Minneapolis. I did a lot of theater, voiceover, and whatever in Minneapolis, and went to college thinking I wanted to be a theater major and an actress, and then got there and was like, nope, I do not like this. Like, it was fun as a kid. It was like my sport, but like once the stakes are real, it's like, no. And so I switched to film and thought I wanted to make music videos. And so when I moved to New York, I worked at a music video production company, was making music videos for singer-songwriters. And it was at the same time that the music industry was sort of on the decline. And I remember I was just finishing up editing a concert DVD for a singer-songwriter, and my sister called me, told me about BeBe, and I was like, I hadn't really done documentary before, but I made a short in college. But I was like, this sounds like a great short that would kind of scratch my music video itch as well, because it's so like music and performance driven. And so that was why I dipped a toe in. And then once I did and learned more about documentary, I just felt like, oh, I think this might be my niche. Like, I just really like the people I met. It's real fraught. Like, the ethics and the relationships involved are real and a lot of responsibility. And I do not take that lightly. And, you know, I doubted throughout our process whether I was the right person to make this film, you know? And I know, like, all of the conversations that are going on there are really important about who should be telling his stories.
Right.
And that was another reason for doubt throughout the whole process. And ultimately, you know, when BeBe and I talked about it, truth is, like, nobody was banging down anyone's door for this movie to get made.
Yeah.
And I had taken the time that I'd taken. I had stuck around when a lot of other people hadn't stuck around for BeBe. And, you know, he decided that he really entrusted me with this story, and his family did too. And, you know, I tried to be very responsible with I have an amazing advisory board. I shored up an amazing producing team. We brought in this composer who's like so amazing and really added a creative layer to the film. She's from the group Les Nubians, who are originally from Cameroon and France. And
you said Brand Nubians?
Les Nubians?
Oh, Les Nubians.
Yeah.
That's a hip hop group.
Yeah, no, this is the R&B sister duo from like, they had some Grammy nominations, I think, in the 90s. They're amazing. And actually one of the first numbers I saw BeBe lip sync to was a Les Nubian song.
Wow.
And so I was really excited to get them on board.
Wow.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm rambling a bit.
No. And it hit like what you said about, you know, feeling like being the right person. It is a difficult thing sometimes to you know, start a story or even inquire about a story. And then you have to really ask yourself, you know, sometimes, you know, I've pondered on making a story about LGBT issues. I have a lot of LGBT friends. I went to a theater arts humanities school, and it was a lot. You know, I was exposed to a lot of gay people then, and even in my neighborhood. But even with all that, I still say to myself, I'm not the person. Yeah. And maybe I am, because I do have a different perspective. But, you know, then I go into, well, at what point, I guess I'll share this. I made a documentary over a friend of mine that was addicted to meth. And one of the things that I talked about is, like, in ways, what documentarians do is exploit a character. It sounds terrible, but in ways we're doing that for entertainment. You know, we want to tell a rich, full story, but we also have to look at, well, you know, this story does have a lot of drama to it. You know, how do I navigate that appropriately from my POV without maybe giving too much of my POV? So it's kind of like, but on the other end of that, no one else is wanting to make the story. I am. So
I'll be honest, Marshall was really into it. Like, he wanted there to be a film, you know? I think he knew that his story had the potential to reach people and impact people. And yeah, he knew it was important. So yeah, you have to have, I think, that buy-in and that collaboration with your protagonists in order to do it respectfully. But it's a dance, and it's a balance of trust. And yeah, that's one of the things I think is really, really hard about documentary. And yeah, very fraught.
if I can give one more piece of that, is there a storyline or a bit that you include that you, going into it, you knew in the edit process that you knew that this could possibly be a problem for Marshall? Like, he may not want this in here, but I feel like it's right.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, Marshall is such a strong, accomplished, confident person. He's such a gatherer and an entertainer. And he loves to take care of everybody and to make sure everybody's okay. And so he will often put on sort of like fronts that are a little bit performative and a little bit like, you know, there's a mask there, honestly, quite a bit. And throughout the film, I think you see me pulling back that mask however I can and trying to get in however I can, because I knew at the end of the day that the story wouldn't land and wouldn't reach the people it needed to reach if we didn't get at least a crack, you know, through that facade a little bit. And I knew that was in his best interest to do so. So there is quite a bit of vulnerability and struggle that we show throughout the film that I know he doesn't love.
Right.
But at the same time, overall, he loves the film and knows that he gets it. He gets it. But I had to push for that.
Any point where you related to Marshall?
Every day. That's the thing. Like, from day one, I was like, yes, I know you're an African drag performer and I'm a straight white lady from Minnesota, but I see myself in him and I relate to his drive, his relationships with his family, his sense of humor about things. Like, yeah, he's just deeply relatable.
Is there any more you want to say about the film? Anything you want to reveal or pull back?
I don't think so. I just want everyone to watch it. I think you'll be surprised. I think if you go in without any expectations, I would love for people to bring their open minds and hearts to it.
Okay, if you want to, again, introduce yourself, talk about the film, any social stuff, how people can find it, because by the time they see this, the festival's over. So,
yeah. So our social channels are at Being Bebe Movie, and yeah, follow us there to find out what festivals we're playing next. It's really important to me to make an impact with this film. So we're developing an impact campaign into the first half of next year. So if you have any ideas about groups or organizations or institutions, church groups, community groups, schools, individuals who would love this movie, like, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me anyway. I really want this movie to reach the right people.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining Tallgrass. And, we look forward to it because you're closing it.
Yeah.
You're in the festival. That's big news right there.
I feel so honored to be included. Like, Tallgrass is a dream. Mm-hmm. Y'all are amazing.
And I've expressed to Melanie too, like, I think this is the most impactful year in terms of some of the conversations that many other films have taken on and being included for many people to watch, from LGBT issue, women's issues, people of color, minority. We have the Gordon Parks Award this year. So it's just, this was filled out with the spectrum of experience. So thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right.